It's like Houdini is Fox Mulder if every town they went to it was just a hoax. You know?
Yeah.
And he's like, Scully, I don't know what to think anymore.
Yeah. I can't believe. Tim Harford is the host of the podcast Cautionary Tales, which explores awful human error, tragic catastrophes, daring heists, and hilarious fiascos. And they recently put out a series on the most famous magician of all time, Harry Houdini. For this episode, Sarah Marshall of the podcast You're Wrong About joins me as co-host to discuss with Tim some of our favorite things: the Victorian religion turned public spectacle known as spiritualism, the wonderfully gullible Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the creative and comical exposing of fraud mediums, the unknowable mysteries of the afterlife, and of course, the dreamy showman-turned-skeptic, Harry Houdini. I'm your host, Chelsey Weber-Smith, and this is American Hysteria. Hello, dear listeners. We have a very fun and exciting and slightly different episode today. I have invited everyone's favorite gal over here, everyone's favorite ghoul, back on the show, Sarah Marshall. And we are going to actually do a little bit of a co-interview, co-conversation with our guest. So, hi, Sarah. Thank you for coming here and doing this with me.
Hi, Chelsey. I'm so happy to be here. And I'm right now, as you can see, holding a microphone with one hand and with the other hand looking up the opening lines of All About Eve because I want to do something here. Do you remember this? It's like Eve getting her big award, and then we're going to go back and learn how she got it. And it's got Addison DeWitt, her like sassy gay confidant, being like, she's the girl on the moon, the girl about town, Eve. And I'm just imagining it starting with him being like, the ghoul, the ghoul on the moon, Eve Harrington. Anyway, hello. I'm so happy to be here.
Always with the fantastic intro, self-introduction. So I wanted to have this conversation at this point in time because we're going to dip our toe into spooky season while still acknowledging that it is summer, and we're not taking that away from anyone.
No. We're having a spooky summer.
Having a spooky summer. We always should have. We always will.
A cruel summer.
A
ghoul summer.
Oh, she got there. She got there. So we are going to be
I'm drunk in the back of the car and I'm crying about a ghoul wondering where you are.
Wow. Taylor. You've never been really a Taylor girl. That's fun. Bring her in.
Spending more time with Taylor fans.
I like that. So yeah, we are going to be talking about Sarah and one of our favorite topics, spiritualism and some of its trappings.
And one of our favorite guys,
Harry Houdini, who, you know, we've never done a true deep dive into. So we are welcoming...
Really? I would have thought you had. I'm so sorry.
No.
Who are we welcoming?
No. We are welcoming Tim Harford from Cautionary Tales, a fantastic podcast that has so much in common with both of our shows. So, Tim, welcome. We are so excited to talk to you.
I am feeling very welcome, and I am also excited to talk about Harry Houdini, guy we love to see. He's amazing.
Yeah.
He is amazing.
And we love to see him disappear. And I'm so excited to be cautioned as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I should probably say a word about Cautionary Tales. We were so excited about Harry Houdini that we did a 3-part series devoted to Houdini and his life and his works and all the amazing twists and turns. So Cautionary Tales is a podcast about things going wrong generally and about the lessons that we can learn. But normally it's just one episode at a time. But for Houdini, you got to go for the 3-parter.
Yeah, it's always a good sign when you got to go to 3.
Yeah.
So, okay, Tim, let's start. Why don't you tell us what it was about Harry Houdini before we get into his story? What was it about him and his story that made you so excited that you needed to do a full 3-parter?
Well, there is a moment in his life at which he goes to Washington, D.C., and testifies in front of a Senate committee, and there's a big old hearing. He's lobbying to have a law passed, and he is interviewed by the committee, and he has to give testimony. And when he gives testimony, they ask him to describe himself. And he describes himself as an author, as I think a scientific investigator, and a mysterious entertainer. I love the phrase mysterious entertainer.
Yeah,
and it's the mysterious entertainer that we all know about Houdini. He's the guy who escaped from handcuffs, right? They'd tie him in a sack. They'd put him in a safe. They'd throw the safe in the river, and then he'd escape. Something like that. That's what we have in mind when we hear about Houdini. But actually, he was so much more than that. And that self-description, that he's also a scientific educator and an investigator, and then he's also an author, tells you that he didn't think the breaking out of handcuffs was the most interesting thing either.
That's really neat. And I just love that there is this lineage and legacy of magicians who are very explicit that the magic that they do is not magic, coming after the, let's say, less skilled medium, spiritualists, anyone doing those types of tricks themselves while claiming that they are real. So it's like you think of debunkers as this specific kind of like nerdy crew. And then sometimes your debunkers are sensational magicians. And I just think that that's so fun.
Yeah.
That just fills me with joy.
Because you like learn how to do it.
Yeah.
Accidentally.
You know, he at one point he says it takes a flim-flammer to spot a flim-flammer.
Hell yeah.
He loved debunking these kind of these fake mediums and so on. I mean, there's a really fascinating moment fairly early in his career. If we could start not quite at the beginning, but
That's
kind of when he's a young man and he's newly married to Bess, the love of his life, and they do magic tricks. They do circus performances, and they're good, but it's really hard to sustain a whole show. And so they're part of a traveling circus, and it's not really working out for them financially. And then they hit upon this formula, this act that is just an absolute sensation. And we describe it in some detail in Cautionary Tales, but Bess is advertised as a trained medium, and she can commune with the spirits, and Harry will send her into a trance, and then he'll ask her questions. And there's this one amazing performance where they've gone to some small town, and half the town is crammed into the theater. And he says, what do you see? And Bess says, I see a little boy. I see a little boy called Joe.
Ooh.
And a 6-year-old boy called Joe has recently died. And everybody in the town knows that a 6-year-old boy called Joe has recently died.
Wow.
And Bess says, I've got a message for his parents. So his parents here, and they run, they're not in the theater. They run, someone runs to their house. They bring them. And then she says, Joe says, I'm okay, Mama.
Oh my God.
And there'll be another one on the way soon.
Whoa.
And there's this outrage. How did Joe's father knows his wife is pregnant? How did Houdini know that his wife was pregnant? And then there's been a murder in the town. And he says, I understand there's been a murder in the town. And then Bess, do you know the murderer? And then Bess suddenly says, yes, I know. And then she screams and she passes out. And oh my goodness, is there a doctor in the house? And they never do find out who was the murderer.
Wow.
But it's completely sensational.
Wow.
And then at the end of the evening, Houdini and Bess just talk about it, and they say, we're never going to do that again. Because it was all a lie. It was all a trick.
Right.
And it may have been the most successful night's business we ever did, but we can't do that. We can't play with people's emotions in that way. And so he just walks away from it and says, if I can't make a living as an honest magician, telling people I'm going to fool them and then fooling them, I don't want to be in this game at all. And then later, when he does break through as the most famous, he is the most famous entertainer in the world, I think, or one of the most famous entertainers in the world, and certainly the most famous magician in the world. And then he's outraged when he sees people claiming to be spiritual mediums, psychics, and so on. And he just knows it's all cheap tricks, and he can see the cheap tricks. They're not even good tricks.
Exactly.
And it just makes him angry.
Yeah, that's quite a show to put on for sure. So definitely the family was not in on this. They had maybe done like some research ahead of time.
He went to the graveyard. there's a new gravestone to a boy named Joe.
Yeah.
He died age 6. It's actually not hard. And then the boys died recently within the last year. Is it really so crazy to suspect that maybe a young couple are going to try for another baby and maybe there'll be a pregnancy? That's not really surprising.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's a guess that if he gets wrong, that there'll be another one on the way. If he gets that one wrong, then no one's going to know it. There's no downside to making that guess. But if the guess comes off, it seems incredible.
Yeah.
So to the people in the room, that seemed like genuine magic, but it was just stage trickery. It was always just stage trickery. And he knew that.
And it's like, if you say the baby thing, it's like, if it's not at that point, then you just skip town and you never find out if the baby actually comes.
You don't have to wait around for a baby, you're a traveling circus.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and you're just out of there.
When did joining the circus stop being an option for people? Maybe you both say. 60s?
My daughter still wants to join the circus, so I don't think it's ever stopped being an option.
It feels like the bar is so much higher now, though, right? At least here, it's like you hear about it in terms of people joining Cirque du Soleil, but just like, when you're a young couple seeking your fortune and you pretend to be mediums for a while.
Yeah.
Where's that job? Capitalism's ruined everything.
TikTok.
There's a guy who appears in this story very late who is also a circus performer, and his act is, if you can make him laugh, you get $1,000. And I'm just thinking,
wow,
that's just not a very good act, is it? And it turns out his face is slightly paralyzed, so he can't actually laugh anyway. So the money's safe, but you're like, I mean, really the entertainment is coming from people in the audience telling jokes, but yeah, I guess it works.
I appreciate the hustle,
It's John Cage's comedy special. What is your favorite thing that you've learned about the young Houdini? Well,
there's a story he used to tell, which is possibly true and possibly not. He learned to pick locks for fun when he was about 10 years old. And after picking all the locks at home, he went out one night and he walked down the street of his local town and he picked all the locks in every storefront in town. And then he got a job working for the locksmith. And at one point, the sheriff walks in with this huge kind of terrifying looking guy in handcuffs. And the sheriff says, this guy's been let off, but I can't find the key to the handcuffs. So can you get him out? And the locksmith says, I'm going for a beer with the sheriff. Harry, you just fix it. I mean, his name wasn't Harry at the time. Doesn't matter. Kid, get the handcuffs off. And so this guy is huge and terrifying. And Harry starts working with a hacksaw. And then the hacksaw blade snaps, and the guy in the handcuffs is like, "You nearly cut me up." And he's like, "Oh, God, this is not going well." And they're steel handcuffs. The hacksaw blade's no good. So he thinks to himself, well, maybe I can just pick the lock. It must be harder to pick handcuffs than to pick kind of ordinary locks. And it is harder, but he improvises a hook and he works away for about a minute, and then he pops off one handcuff to the astonishment of himself and the prisoner. And then the second cuff is easier to get off, and so they both come off, and in walks the locksmith and in walks the sheriff, and they're like, "Oh yeah, good job, kid." And Houdini would later say, "There's only 2 people ever saw me get the handcuffs off: my wife and that terrifying man who I never saw again."
Wow.
That's the story he would tell.
Wow. Okay, so now that we've got just a glimpse of our little Harry, maybe we should fast forward to him as he becomes a magician. And you've mentioned one story about him kind of dabbling in the fake seances. But let's kind of start there, if that sounds good to you, Tim.
Yeah, I mean, the tricks are great. There's one trick where he borrows a jacket off an audience member, and then he puts the jacket on, and then he gets tied up and padlocked and locked in a chest. And then his wife, Bess, stands on top of the chest, lifts up a curtain to obscure the chest, claps once, and then she claps twice, and then she claps a third time. The curtain drops. Harry is on top of the chest. Rose is in the chest wearing the jacket, all padlocked. So it's a good trick, but then that's the trick. So it's like, okay, I mean, you can string that out to 10 minutes probably, but that's not a whole show. So he's really good, but they're really struggling to kind of make it all work commercially. And at one point, a family member says, look, I can get you a job at a lock manufacturer, no problem. If this magic thing doesn't work out. But in the end, it does. He just, he keeps working at it and he gets a couple of lucky breaks and success breeds success. And soon enough, he's top billing often with Bess, and he becomes the most famous magician on the planet and does these amazing stunts. And it's a combination of just regular magic tricks. I mean, he could do all sorts of very, very good tricks and these famous escape performances. And he was an amazing athlete, incredibly skilled. He could pick locks with his toes as well as with his fingers. He could hold his breath for an enormous amount of time. The one trick he would do is called the Chinese water torture trick, which is, it's not very culturally sensitive. I don't think you call it that these days, but
sure,
whatever. That's what they called it. And he'd be put in manacles around his feet, chained up, handcuffed, and then lowered headfirst upside down into a tank of water. And then kind of the whole tank would be bolted. But before he went in, this is the genius. Before he went in, he would say to people, how long can you hold your breath? Hold your breath along with me.
Oh, that's cool.
And everybody in the audience would go, and then he'd be dunked in, and there'd be somebody standing to one side with an axe ready to smash into this tank in case something went wrong. And one by one, everybody in the audience would go, I can't hold my breath any longer. And it just seemed an impossibly long time. And then suddenly the curtain would drop and Houdini would be there, soaking wet, gasping.
Wow.
I mean, who knows how long he actually took to get out of the tank. Probably got out of the tank very, very fast and just took a break. But it was an amazing piece of showmanship.
That is so smart.
He was a very clever man. Mm-hmm. He was a very clever man and had a lot of admirable qualities, which I guess we can come to. But yeah, he gets to this point where he's just incredibly rich. He still has very simple tastes because he lived a childhood of poverty. He's famous and he's not satisfied with just being a conjurer. He gets very annoyed at these fake mediums and he wants to expose them and to do something about them. And so that takes him in all kinds of interesting directions.
When does his career as a skeptic begin? Or, just to place us in history, when does he start looking around and noticing a lot of spiritualists using parlor tricks to fool people?
That's a good question. I'm not sure exactly when it happens, but I think an important moment is around the First World War. And that's for two reasons. One of which you'll be very familiar with, which is that there was a real uptick, I think, in interest in spiritualism with so many people dying. And then
for some reason.
Yeah. And then the Great Flu after the war.
Right.
But he had a personal reason as well, which was his mother died in 1913. And, at the time, so he was born in the 1870s. So he would have been about 40 at the time. I think 39 when his mother died. But he was very close to her. He would, even as an adult, he would lie with his head on her breast and just listen to her heartbeat.
Oh.
He was absolutely devoted to her. So he was devastated when she died. He got a telegram, which he read after a performance, and he fainted when he read the telegram saying she'd died. So he just desperately wanted to talk to his mother some more. And the spiritualists were saying, yeah, we can do that. We can reach the dead. And I think what fascinates me about Houdini is he was interested in that idea, but at the same time, he could see all the tricks.
Yeah.
So he wasn't an outright skeptic in the sense of, this is obviously nonsense. I know it's nonsense. He was like, well, it might be true, but I've never seen any evidence. So I'm going to keep looking for evidence and I'll keep an open mind. And I think that open-minded search, genuinely open-minded, because normally when people say they're open-minded, they're not really open-minded. They just mean, I believe what I want to believe. That's open-mindedness. You don't believe the same thing, so you're closed-minded.
Yeah.
Houdini really was open-minded, but he could just see, he knew all the tricks. And so over and over again, he would just see nonsense and he knew it was nonsense. So he kept looking.
It seems like he wanted to believe almost in a way because he wanted to know that he could talk to his mom again. Yeah. At least that's the impression I've gotten in the past. It's like he was open-minded out of a desire also to know that he could maybe contact his mom again. And once he saw the tricks, understood the tricks, and, he came to a point that I imagine was a bit bitter, and that started a little bit of a change in the way
It's like Houdini is Fox Mulder if every town they went to, it was just a hoax, Yeah. And he's like, Scully, I don't know what to think anymore.
Yeah. I can't believe.
I don't know. Maybe there was bitterness. He devoted a huge amount of time and energy and reputational risk and money to pursuing fake mediums. Mm-hmm. So he was really determined in that respect. But there were other things he did that I can't imagine. Imagine like a modern day skeptic, like a Richard Dawkins or somebody like that. Mm-hmm. So Houdini did something that I don't think they would have done, which is that he found, I think possibly as many as 20 friends. And with each of these friends, he created a code, unique code. Mm-hmm. And he said, if you die and you can commune from the other side, use this code. And if I die, I'll use the code.
Chelsey, we got to do that.
And I think somebody like Dawkins or James Randi or somebody would just go, well, this is nonsense. I mean, it's clearly impossible. I don't need to create this whole kind of elaborate setup. But Houdini's like, no, maybe it's possible, but I won't believe it unless I get some kind of proof, because there's a lot of fakery. But if I have this secret code, then that would be proof.
Well, and the secret code thing, I remember as a kid, I don't know if it was in a movie, because I can't imagine I was a kid being like, oh, Houdini did this, but maybe it reached me. But that was like a thing that I can't remember any of them now, but I had friends where I was like, if I die, I'm going to write on a chalkboard this word and you will know there's an afterlife.
You're so practical.
Yeah. I was curious, Sarah, was that part of your life?
No, I never thought of that. I didn't have any good plans around this kind of thing. Yeah.
Right.
Chelsey, you clearly got that Houdini spirit, that curiosity and that kind of that scientific rigor. I love it.
Oh yeah. I was a big ghost kid. I had lots of ghost experiences. So but I'm also a skeptic. So Houdini is very cool to me. And so is the whole movement. More after this. And now, back to the show. Tim, I know that you want to talk about Arthur Conan Doyle. Sarah, I know you want to talk about your man. So let's go. What's the relationship like between Houdini and Arthur?
Well, at first they're friends.
Sir Arthur.
Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Get it right.
Who, as most people will know, is the author of the Sherlock Holmes books. And like Houdini, is one of the most famous men on the planet at about this time. And Conan Doyle's got a lot of other interests. He's interested in science. He's actually a very skilled photographer, and he's amazingly smart and skeptical when he wants to be, but he doesn't always want to be. And he's becomes a passionate believer in spiritualism. Like Houdini, he's been bereaved multiple times around the years of the First World War, and is desperate to speak to his dead mother and his dead son. Unlike Houdini, he just doesn't have this kind of forensic mindset. Ironically, for the creator of Sherlock Holmes, he just doesn't seem to have this forensic ability to determine, what's trickery and what's genuine evidence. He's a huge believer in spiritualism. Houdini is spiritualism curious. They're super famous guys. Anyway, at one stage in the 1920s, early 1920s, they're all relaxing. I think it's in Atlantic City. I can't remember exactly where. And Doyle says, look, if you want to speak to your mother, my wife, Lady Doyle, is a skilled spiritual medium. So we can have a seance right now and see whether we can get through. And Houdini's like, yeah, sure. Let's go for it. This is,
let's go.
This is, I don't know, about 10 years after Houdini's mother's died.
It's like an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm.
It's amazing. And so Lady Doyle comes through, picks up this pen, and she starts writing with the message from the spirits. And it's like, oh, is that my boy? It's been so long. It's so wonderful here on the other side. Everything is so big. Everything is so bright and beautiful. And It'll be great when you join me. You'll love it. Oh, there's so much I want to say to you. And so she burbles on and on and on and on. And Houdini is kind of nodding politely and thinking, okay, number one, you say there's a lot you want to say, but you're not actually saying anything.
Uh-huh.
Number two, you say you can see my thoughts. Odd that you don't mention today's my birthday. And therefore I've been thinking about you, Mum. Odd that you don't mention that.
Uh-huh.
Also, interesting that you begin the message with a crucifix, with a cross rather. Has my mother converted from Judaism?
Yeah, I was going to say.
In the afterlife? Maybe.
Famously Jewish. Yeah.
In Summerland, everyone is Lutheran.
Also curious, all this is coming through in English. My mother spoke 5 languages, but English wasn't one of them.
Uh-huh. Wow.
So, but he's just like,
go.
yeah, okay, whatever. Does Lady Doyle really believe she's talking to the spirit of my mother? Maybe. He kind of nods politely.
Yeah.
But Doyle is blown away by what Lady Doyle has produced. And he thinks he's given Houdini this amazing gift of speaking to his mother. Houdini later is like, oh yeah, every spiritualist medium I've ever met has either been a fraud or a mental degenerate. Doyle reads this and it's like, I do not know how long a private friendship can last under such a curious
conditions. Wow.
And this goes on for a long time. So they are sort of friends. They write to each other.
That is awkward.
They find each other fascinating. They have tremendous respect for each other in some ways. But Sir Arthur is absolutely convinced in the reality of spiritualism, and Houdini is becoming ever more vigorous in his debunking of fake mediums, including some of the protégés of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. There's one who's about to win a big prize from Scientific American until Houdini shows up, points out how the trick is done, and Scientific American are like, oh, thanks for pointing that out. We're not going to kind of give you this prize for being a spiritualist medium. So, yeah.
I think we have to know what the trick is. What is this prize supposed to be for?
So this was in the mid-1920s. So Scientific American offered a prize for proof of psychic phenomena. And so they had various people claiming to be psychics, and they'd send a panel of scientists to observe them. And there's this one medium called Marjorie.
I know her.
Marjorie the medium.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know the details. Apparently she was big in the day. But the scientists went and had a look and said, yeah, I mean, looks real to us. I mean, we can't figure out how she's doing it. Maybe
they're like, sure, why not?
Yeah,
whatever.
Probably it's real. And Houdini's like, let me go and have a look. And at first he's like, that is interesting, actually. But it turns out it's very, very, very clever sleight of hand. Mm-hmm. And he a lot of the stuff, these seances are all held in the dark, and the various tricks used. And Houdini kind of figures it all out. And that's when he says it takes a flimflammer to catch a flimflammer. So he says, oh, she's very good, but it is a trick, and she doesn't get the prize. And Sir Arthur is very cross about this.
I will just pop in to say a couple things about Marjorie, because I do know her. I know her.
Oh, yes. Okay. I want the backstory. Yeah.
Yeah. So her seances, we've talked a little bit about her in the live shows we did, Sarah. I talked a bit about her, and also we did an episode called Talking to the Dead a million years ago, and she makes a little appearance there, but she really used her sexuality to kind of be this sleight of hand almost. Like people would come in and she'd be like in this like short kimono, and they would like dust her chest with phosphorescent powders, and the husband would walk around.
That can't be good for you in a Radium Girls kind of way.
No.
Yeah.
No, I agree. And yeah, she would like walk or her husband would show up and show naked pictures of her just randomly to everybody before she came out. It's kind of like, look at this hot woman. Don't look at what she's doing with her other hand, right?
I've never been to those kind of parties. I'm obviously missing out.
Yeah, I mean, right? Yeah.
So Scientific American was like, well, seems legit.
But she was also a big ectoplasm person. So she was really, really good at creating the images of like the hand coming out of her navel, like the ghost hand. And she was just very good at what she did, specifically in what is my favorite part of the spiritualist movement, ectoplasm. We won't get too far into that, but I just wanted to give a little Marjorie backstory there because she deserves it.
Yeah. Well, and just now that you've mentioned ectoplasm, to define that briefly, I would tell me if this is correct, that it's like when generally in a seance, you would produce seemingly from out of your body or from like an orifice of your body, like some cheesecloth or some goo or maybe some meat, and be like, well, look at that. It's from the spirit world.
Yep. That is right. It was like lanolin, or like, you know, it was entrails mixed with cheesecloth, just like you said. And sometimes it would be like a full puppet that would come out of their mouths. These are things you could see in our live show in the future. And
you can. Yeah, we do have a puppet.
We have a whole thing going on.
Do you produce it from your mouth or in the live show?
Kinda.
No, we're not that skilled.
Okay.
But it's
maybe
like
with practice.
Some sleight of hand we use.
But maybe next year.
Maybe next year
we'll be able to get the puppet to
come right
come
out
of my mouth, so you should come see it, just in case.
But yeah, hands could be anything that looked somewhat like a person that was also kind of gooey. And that was supposed to be the way that the spirits were able to break through into the physical world. And it was really goofy and stupid by our standards, but it was very impressive by the standards of the, 1910s, 1920s.
Well, they might not like the things that we do for entertainment now.
That's true.
So.
That's true.
Yeah. But Houdini was not fooled. He was not fooled.
No,
and actually,
you
know who else was not fooled? Rose Mackenberg. Should we talk about Rose?
I would love to talk about her. Yes.
So Rose Mackenberg was, I don't know, Houdini's girl boss detective. I don't know the best way to describe her. I mean, she ended up working for him, and she would just go out and unmask spiritualist mediums and fake psychics and all of these people, the fake palm readers, for Houdini. And I mean, he would sometimes do it himself, but he's a busy guy. There's a lot of people out there. You need help. And she would do this sometimes at great personal risk to herself, because some of these guys were really sleazy, and they'd be like, oh, I must have physical contact with the body to purify you. And she's like, actually, I feel purified already. Thank you.
Thank you.
And, she can look after herself, but she's very brave. She's very smart. And she would just expose one of these fake mediums after another. And so a classic example would be, she'd go and see a psychic medium and she'd pretend to be a widow, and she wants to talk to her husband and ask his advice for how to invest the $3,000 she got as a settlement after his death. And these mediums are like, oh yeah, sure. I know this great. Your husband is talking to me and he says you should invest it in this corporation. It's a really great investment. And of course, the whole thing would be corrupt.
Ugh.
And she'd be like, oh, I can't write so good. Could you help me make out the check? And so she'd get them to make out the check. And then the whole thing would be in the Houdini show that was in town that night or the next night. So Rose would come on stage and Houdini would interview her about what she had done and what these guys had said. And she had all the proof, and the police would be called in.
Whoa.
So in the end, the show took on 3 parts. And part 1 would be Houdini does amazing magic tricks. Part 2 is Houdini does amazing escapes. And part 3 is Houdini and Rose Mackenberg basically destroy 1 or 2 pillars of the community who are posing as psychics, but are in fact frauds. And so it was enormous. It became this very educational experience, and people loved it. I mean, it was really funny because she would just take these guys down, and she was very smart, and just everybody would be in stitches laughing at her accounts of what they had said and the frauds they'd tried to pull. But this is an important thing for both of them, because people were. They preyed on vulnerable people. They preyed on people who were bereaved, and they were frauds. And Houdini and Rose didn't like it.
Yeah, yeah. And what a cool show. It's like reminding me of those horrible political YouTube videos where it's like Houdini and Rose absolutely destroy the left,
Yeah, no, exactly like that. Only it absolutely destroy the psychic who lives kind of 2 streets over from you. So that was fun.
So did people start to know who Rose was, though? Like, was word getting around, like, avoid this lady, or was she wearing disguises? Or?
Oh, she would have fantastic disguises.
Ooh,
so
okay.
She would, she had a number of different disguises. And so that was one of the things where Houdini would be like, when you went to this psychic, did you appear as you are today? And she was like, oh no, I looked very different. So, people didn't see her coming.
That's so fun.
But speaking of politics, he made it political. He tried to get a law passed to basically make all of this stuff illegal. And so he testified, Rose Mackenberg testified, some of the leading psychics testified. There was this huge fuss, this huge scene on Capitol Hill. And he put a lot of money into it and a lot of effort into it. But in the end, the law didn't pass, probably for good reasons. I mean, in the end, spiritualism's a religion. Can you outlaw a religion? Mm-hmm. If people are acting fraudulently, then you can prosecute them for fraud. You don't need to prosecute them for being a fake medium. So in the episode of Cautionary Tales, we look a little bit at the academic literature on this. There have been loads and loads and loads of attempts to ban this sort of fraud. And it actually turns out to be very, very hard. So that he was not successful in that, but he did successfully massively raise the profile of this kind of industry of predators, basically,
right?
And draw a lot of people's attention to it. So maybe that did some good.
Yeah. What were those hearings like? I know they were pretty dramatic at times. Like, I think it was the Senate hearing specifically that got a little out of hand.
Yeah, somebody tried to punch him. They were hurling anti-Semitic slurs. There was a lot of comedy as well. There's one point where he calls his wife Bess to the stand and basically says, have I ever treated you in a mean or cruel way? And she's like, no. Have I ever appeared to be crazy except about you? She's like, no. Have I been a good boy? Yes, you have. It's just it's stupid, but kind of fun. And he's basically saying, look, my gal's been with me for decades, and that should count for something, which I'm not sure is really true.
Oh.
But and he would stage these kind of demonstrations of like, and then they'd do this, and then they'd get a voice to come out of the trumpet, and he'd put on these spiritualist tricks and then show that they were tricks. So that created some amusement. I mean, he did that for Conan Doyle once. There's this amazing, I've got a moment, an amazing scene.
Yeah.
So he's trying to persuade Conan Doyle to be less credulous. Mm-hmm. You just like stop believing every crazy thing that comes across your desk. And he says to Conan Doyle, okay, I want you to take this piece of paper and just go away, go outside where you can't be observed, and write down anything, a phrase, a quotation, anything you like. Fold it up, put it in your pocket, come back. So Conan Doyle does that. And then Houdini says, okay, here's a bunch of cork balls. Just pick one of these cork balls at random. And so we pick one at random, and Houdini cuts it in half to show it's an ordinary cork ball. He says, okay, pick another one and put it in this ink well so it soaks up ink. And then Houdini hangs up this slate from the ceiling, so it's kind of like hanging there in midair, so no one can interfere with it. And then he says to Conan Doyle, okay, just take this spoon, lift the cork ball out of the inkwell, and just touch it to the slate. And Conan Doyle does that, and then the cork ball sticks to the slate. And then by itself, it starts rolling over the slate and writing, and it writes the phrase that is on the piece of paper in Conan Doyle's pocket, which is the kind of phrase you'd never ever guess. It's a phrase in Aramaic from the Old Testament.
How? How did he do it?
And then Houdini says to Conan Doyle, I'm not going to tell you how I did that, but I promise you it was a trick. Please, just because you see something that you cannot explain, please do not assume it must be supernatural. Lots of tricks in the world.
Are you telling me we don't get to know how that worked?
I don't know how he did it.
Oh, Christ.
I don't know how he did it.
If I were, honestly, I can imagine Sir Arthur Conan Doyle being like, well, he won't tell me, so it's probably because he does have magical powers. Except he would have said that in a Scottish accent.
You're way ahead of me. That is exactly what Conan Doyle thinks. He's like, Houdini, what a bastard. He has psychic powers. He has spiritual powers. He's summoning the power of the spirits, and yet he keeps mocking the spirits and denying that the spirit world is real. He's going to get himself in big trouble. I mean, this is the thing. The spiritualists
He's a self-hating psychic.
They kept saying, Houdini, you are going to die, which I think is very unnerving. Like, if enough people say you're going to die and pray for you to die, at what point does that turn into a threat?
Sure.
So Houdini started getting pretty paranoid. He would phone friends in the middle of the night and say, they're going to kill me. They're going to kill me. And one psychic in particular said, after the Senate hearings, you are going to be dead in 6 months.
Mm-hmm. And I think Marjorie was one of the ones that threatened him.
Oh, not Marjorie.
Marjorie. In fact, here we go. I just have to read this. I pulled up from our past episode that has Marjorie in it. And at one point during those, I believe it was actually during the Senate hearings, but she does scream at him. And I imagine pointing with like a shaking hand. That's what I'm imagining. She said, "Houdini, you goddamn son of a bitch. I put a curse on you that will follow you every day for the rest of your short life. Houdini will be gone by Halloween," which I love. Yep. Had to share that one.
Yeah. So he's got Conan Doyle basically thinks he's a liar. Mm-hmm. He's got every psychic and spiritualist on the planet praying for his death and predicting that he will not last the rest of the year. He's in his early 50s now. And then there's another extraordinary thing that happens, which is that there's this guy suddenly, this new magician appears on the scene. And he's like the Egyptian fakir. I don't think he was Egyptian.
No, I don't think so.
He was probably Italian or something.
He would, I don't know. His shtick he'd have himself buried in a zinc coffin, and he would just go down there and he said, I put myself into a cataleptic. I can't remember. He used some kind of medical mumbo jumbo, but it's basically he just held his breath for a long time. Mm-hmm. So he would keep himself breathing in a shallow way in this sealed container. And then after, 45 minutes, 50 minutes, 55 minutes, an impossibly long time, they'd break him out and he'd be fine. And so Houdini sees this and goes, that is my territory. Holding my breath while I'm in a confined space get your tanks off my lawn.
That is so my thing.
So he says, look, whatever this guy does, I am going to do better. Which is risky because he used to be incredibly fit. He's now a little bit out of shape. He's in his early 50s. So he starts training again and starts trying to lose some weight and get fit again. And then he has a bronze coffin made, or bronze sarcophagus. And he has himself soldered into it and then put to the bottom of a swimming pool. And he has some people standing on top of it. And he's got a phone line so he can call to be released.
Mm. Oh boy.
This is extremely risky because if he passes out, he ain't going to make the phone call.
Oh, yeah.
Famously, you can't make phone calls when you're passed out.
Yeah.
It's hot in the swimming pool and he's not a young man. I mean, I'm 51. I know what it's like to be 51. You don't feel young.
Well, we won't bury you alive.
and he's down there. And the fakir has done this for 59 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Jeez.
And Houdini says to himself, I can't just do an hour. I've got to destroy this guy's record. So he stays down there. He stays there and he stays there. And at an hour and 28 minutes, he's just doing this shallow, shallow, shallow breath. He feels himself passing out and he picks up the phone and he says, bring me out in 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
And 2 minutes later, they bring this thing up and they carve it open and there is Houdini and he's still alive. And he's the same old showman. So he does not die in one of his old tricks gone wrong.
It's like I knew that he didn't die, and yet I was...
You're like, get out of that coffin, old man. Yeah.
It's like when you watch the O.J. Simpson show and you're like, what's going to happen? It's like, well, you know what's going to happen. Anyway,
yeah. This time it might be different.
Good storytelling, though. Mm-hmm. I was riveted.
More after this. And now, back to the show.
So one of the things he said at the Senate hearing is if an astrologer or a psychic, they make so many guesses. If you make that many guesses, eventually one of the guesses will be right. Mm-hmm. And one of the guesses they made is that Houdini would be dead within 6 months. And Houdini was, in fact, dead within 6 months. Mm. So that's a story in and of itself.
Yeah.
I'm sure it would infuriate him that everyone's like, ooh, could that be a psychic phenomenon? And he'd be like, no,
Yeah. Well, specifically Marjorie, too, because she was like, he'll be dead by Halloween. And I think he died on Halloween.
Is by Halloween the same thing as on Halloween?
I think on Halloween is even better than by Halloween.
It sure is. But we can say Marjorie was not exactly right.
Right.
Yeah. Well, so the question is, did they have him done in? Did the spiritualists have him murdered?
Interesting.
So the way he died, it's sad. After a show, he was talking to some young fans, and one of them seems to have been a bit socially awkward and a little bit kind of not picking up on social cues, and said, "Oh, I understand, Mr. Houdini, that you can withstand, you're so strong, you can withstand any blow to the stomach." And he's like, yeah, sure, I can do that. Feel my muscles, they're like iron. He's like, "Well, would you mind, Mr. Houdini, if I administer a few blows to your stomach?" And Houdini's like,
It's a parable about having better boundaries with your audience.
Can't I just sign your baseball hat?
So pride is a powerful thing. So he's like, "Okay, sure." And he's just about to get out of the seat where he's sitting to stand up to kind of brace himself. And this guy while Houdini is still sitting down, just starts punching him. And until the other guys who are there kind of drag him off and say, "What are you doing?" And then Houdini's like, "Yes, thank you. That will suffice." And anyway, the guy leaves. And Houdini actually says to somebody, "To tell the truth, I actually don't feel so well." And he does another couple of shows. And by the end, he passes out at the end of a show. And he's taken to hospital. The surgeon opens him up. His appendix is ruptured. His insides are just a massive pus. There's no antibiotics. It's completely unsurvivable. And he dies soon after. Now, it's not actually clear that the punch had anything to do with it. He may already have had acute appendicitis. He may already, have had a ruptured appendix, or the appendix might have been about to rupture. So it may not have been anything to do with the punch, actually. And if the psychics arranged to have him killed, having some guy punch him in the stomach a few times is probably not going to do it.
No.
So someone like Conan Doyle, Conan Doyle actually said in public, he said, "This is terrible. I can't understand what happened." And in private, he said, "His death was undoubtedly ordained from the other side."
Oh, darling.
But I think Houdini would probably have gone, stuff happens, there are coincidences, a lot of stuff happens for no reason, and that's just the way it is.
He would have been like, "No, you idiot."
Yeah, stop saying this stuff.
I mean, I would love to live in the world Sir Arthur Conan Doyle believed in, where apparently you're just a man with such powerful psychic powers that you're lying to everyone that you're not psychic, and there's so much psychic energy to go around that people are like, "Don't tell anyone though," and little girls are being visited by fairies all the time, but
Yep.
Somebody said of Conan Doyle that if he was selling you a house with no roof and only 3 walls, he could still sell you the house with his glorious poetic evocation of the features that remained. No, he was very persuasive, including of himself.
Apparently.
So, I mean, we were really excited on Cautionary Tales. We realized my co-writer said, it turns out there's a Cautionary Tales cinematic universe that involves Houdini and Conan Doyle and the Cottingley fairies and weird guys who are working on tanks in the First World War. And we've got all these different stories we're telling. And it turns out all of these people knew each other. And yeah, it's kind of amazing.
I do know how that feels from making this show. And I imagine, Sarah, you know how that feels as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, mine is a little bit later, but...
There is an amazing epilogue after Houdini dies. I don't know if we've got time for that story as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, please.
So, where to start? Maybe the place to start is with Rose Mackenberg, Houdini's detective. There's a moment where one morning after Houdini's died, she's making her morning coffee and she picks up the newspaper, and on the front page of the newspaper, she reads something that makes her spit her coffee out, because it says, "Houdini has communicated with his wife from beyond the grave, and he has used the secret code that they agreed." And Rose Mackenberg is like, this is incredible.
Yeah.
That thing that Houdini was he always just wanted the truth. Could it really?
Yeah.
And then she stops and she thinks, And then she goes, oh, I know how they did it. And she's already figured out how the trick is done. In fact, the trick was done in a different way, but there's multiple ways to do most of these tricks. So Rose was trying to figure out, like, how could it be that Bess, Houdini's widow, had held a seance, and that the psychic who had organized this seance had managed to produce Houdini's secret code. And what Rose Mackenberg figured out is that actually Houdini and Bess had a secret code all their life, because they used to do psychic tricks when they were like in their 20s, 30 years ago. And not only that, but the secret code they used is published in Houdini's biography.
Oh, okay.
So anybody can pick up Houdini's, I think, autobiography. In fact, anybody can pick up the autobiography, figure out the secret code, and then come up with something convincing that would persuade Bess. So that's what Rose figured out. But actually, that's not what happened. What happened is that this young, very handsome young medium, who was a protege of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, actually, his name was Arthur Ford.
Oh, no.
He, I think, had basically seduced Bess.
Oh.
I don't know how far that had gone, but he would basically, she was infatuated with him. She was not in a good place. You know, she was taking sleeping pills. She was drinking too much. She was not in a great, in a happy place. And Arthur Ford basically persuaded her that they were going to fake this seance, and that Houdini was going to be advertised as coming back from the dead, and they'd make money out of it.
Dang.
Yeah.
Wow.
But Bess was also, you know, in her prescription drug addled haze
Era.
She told a journalist all about this. You know, another woman, I can't remember her name, another kind of girl detective, this amazing journalist who basically printed the fake story on the front page. And then immediately having done that, knowing the whole thing was a fake, confronted Arthur Ford, got him to offer her a bribe, revealed that her editor was in the next room. She'd already told her editor everything that was going to happen, predicted the whole thing. So she got a second front page story saying, yesterday's front page story was a big hoax. Here's what really happened. So she got 2 front page stories out of it and exposed Arthur Ford. And so that kind of, I guess they all lived happily ever after. But it is
bada bing, bada boom. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's sad because Houdini spent so much of his life defending vulnerable people who had been bereaved against the predatory attention of psychics, of fake psychics.
Yeah.
And he probably would have known. He didn't need to be psychic to know, oh, they're going to come after Bess after I've died.
Yeah.
Because that's the biggest coup of all, if you can get Houdini back from the grave. So she was vulnerable, but...
yeah.
Because why shouldn't have to prove that you're still young by letting people punch you?
No, you shouldn't.
I mean, in fairness, Houdini had a lot of affairs. And after he died, Bess had realized it because she'd found all the letters. So
okay, so she's feeling...
I think she was kind of justified in playing around a bit as well.
She's feeling justified, yeah, for sure.
But yeah, in the end, Bess met a very nice young man from the circus, another circus performer. He's the guy who he'd give you $1,000 if you could make him laugh, but he had a paralyzed face, so he never laughed at anything.
He's the guy?
He's the guy.
Oh,
he ended up marrying Bess.
Wow.
He was called Edward Saint.
That's kind of a twist.
He seems to have been a very, very nice man. And then one of the things they did in the 1930s was they organized this thing called the Last Seance. And it was on the roof of a Hollywood hotel. It was broadcast on the radio across the nation. And they had all of these spiritualist devices, so like a trumpet, a bell, a light, all kinds of things that the spirits could use to communicate. And they had this portrait of Harry. And they basically broadcast this seance, and they said, we've given every facility we possibly could have done for Houdini's spirit to communicate with us. And they basically say, well, are you there, Harry? Are you there? And they're just broadcasting nothing because nothing happens. And then in the end, Edward Saint turns to Bess, Harry's widow, and it's all being live broadcast, and says, are you satisfied, Mrs. Houdini? And she says, yes.
Wow.
It's all over. I now know Harry is not going to come back to me. And then she just says, good night, Harry. And she turns off the light.
Wow. I'm literally tearing up. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. God, that is quite the ending. I've never heard that before. That's like really beautiful, even though it's so sad.
Yeah.
Wow.
They knew how to put on a show, didn't they? But
Yeah.
it gets me as well.
Yeah.
Every time I listened to that episode of Cautionary Tales just a couple of days ago, just preparing for this conversation, and I choked up.
Yeah.
Oh,
just thinking
God,
about it.
yeah. And I mean, not to get like overly personal, but I've been going through a family, like a death in my family. And I will say that like, I'm such a skeptic. I used to not be so skeptical, but I've grown really skeptical. But man, if this process doesn't make you question your skepticism, I mean, it is a total, like, I don't know, at least for me, there's like an alchemy that happens where you're like, no, I'm ready to like think about other options, because the sort of the final end starts to feel different than it does just on a regular day. And so this is so interesting to me, because it is this really vulnerable place to be, where something does, at least for me, again, happen where there's a change and you're more open. And whether that means something or not is, up for discussion. But yeah, this episode's just been a really interesting thing to hear about in this moment of my life. And I appreciate so much what Houdini did and where it came from, and what a genuine person he was on this search for a truth we probably will never actually be able to access. But at least we can get these fraudulent kind of people who are using this to make money and to get famous. We can get them out of the equation, and maybe make room for something else, some other way to investigate, the other world. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry for your loss, Chelsey.
No, that's all right. Yeah, it's okay. Thank you, Tim. I appreciate it.
But I think when you are bereaved in that way, I think we all feel that, and we all feel somehow that this person is still with us. And of course, in a way, they are still with us, because they've changed us. We've been changed by the relationship with that person who's gone. So in that respect, they're still there. They've changed everybody they interacted with, especially the people they were close with. And I think it's very easy to take that feeling that they are still there, really still there. Like we could talk to them, to take that feeling, and it feels so real. But I think it's better to just have a clear-eyed view of what's happened, which is that
totally
they're with you, but you're not. You're not going to talk to them through trumpets or anything like that.
Not through trumpets.
They're with you in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you want to see phosphorescent cleavage, just go get in the market for that specifically.
Yeah, exactly.
It had to go there.
I know. And that's why, seances, when Sarah and I have talked about them, they were serious on one hand, and on another hand, they were shows that people went to and were entertained by. And I think that that's a whole different animal. Like if I'm going to a fun show where there's going to be parlor tricks and I'm just out at the theater, it's a different vibe. And then we had the other kinds that were a little bit more like the ones we're talking about today, where there was a very serious aspect to them. And, it's like anything else. It's like takes all kinds. And Tim, is there anything else you want to leave us with today?
He was a remarkable man. I guess the only other thing to say is that if people want to hear about the time Sir Arthur Conan Doyle thought there was fairies at the bottom of the garden, we have a Cautionary Tales about the Cottingley fairies as well. And that's also, there's a very human backstory to that one as well that is not always mentioned.
Absolutely. Sarah, any final Houdini thoughts? Be our Jerry Springer today.
Oh my God. Oh, wow. Yeah. I wish Jerry Springer could also come back as a ghost with a secret code.
He will.
Yeah, he better. But, well, I mean, I feel like, I don't know. I love getting to just get the story today, and just, I feel like I have a big crush on Houdini. Like, who doesn't, right?
Yeah.
Feels pretty normal.
Yes.
Yeah. And thank you. Normalize having a crush on Houdini. But I feel like there's, I don't know, what I like about open skepticism, just kind of as a way of moving through life, and certainly something I'm trying to practice too, is that I think there's actually something to the sort of Conan Doyle Sherlockian mindset that actually diminishes the complexity of the world. Because like the appeal of the Sherlock Holmes stories, which I love and was raised, loving, is that there is some guy out there smart enough to understand everything that happened exactly as it happened. And that's never been true.
Mm-hmm. He always closes the loop, doesn't he? He always closes the loop.
And it's like, listen, babe, like there are some human motivations and experiences that even you can't guess. And that's okay, right? And so this worldview where there is the perfect detective out there, or where fairies are just showing up like, hello, to children, and you can get a picture of them without trying very hard, to me kind of feels like it diminishes just the scale and the scope of not just human experience, but the world we're in, that we have the ability to understand only a very small part of, and that there are things beyond our understanding, and acknowledging that feels, it doesn't have to be a sad thing. I don't think. I derive comfort from believing that there are things that we don't understand, and that we shouldn't be trying to package them and sell them as if we do.
Absolutely. Beautiful last thought, Sarah, as always.
Oh, thank you. This was so great.
This was so great. Well, thank you, Sarah, so much for joining me in this.
Thank you, Chelsey. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah. Thank you both.
Oh my gosh, this was so fun. You're a great storyteller. I was very riveted.
Yeah, this is wonderful. I want to hear more alarming stories from you, and I think I know where to find them.
Yeah, you do.
Just want a repeat of that coffin swimming pool thing. That was,
yeah, that was good. That was really good. And yeah, Cautionary Tales, everybody, make sure you subscribe.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
This was American Hysteria. I just wanted to say one thing before we go. My family, including my brother Riley and my partner Miranda, who work on this show, lost our dear granny Sheila Hoganson this week. She was a constant and bright part of our lives, a hilarious, witty, generous, fierce, charming Brit who enjoyed nothing more than having a cup of tea or a glass of wine with her daughter Sally, her son-in-law Mike, her late husband Ray, her granddaughters-in-law Callie and Miranda, her grandkids Riley and me, and of course, her devoted cat Roger. She grew roses, fed hummingbirds, cared for cats, loved murder mysteries, and had a keen sense of gallows humor that she thankfully passed on to all of us. She was beloved by all who encountered her, and we will miss her every day. She was the first person to hold me when I entered this world. In the spirit of believing that we do go on, I can't wait, Granny, to see you once again. Please make sure to subscribe to Tim's show, Cautionary Tales, wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to support American Hysteria and get ad-free episodes and bonus content, you can become a patron at patreon.com/American Hysteria or subscribe on Apple Plus. You'll get access to Hysteria Home Companion, a podcast that I make with our producer Miranda, where we tell you stories related to the topics that we're covering or stories that we just know that you'll love. That's patreon.com/American Hysteria or subscribe on Apple Plus. You can pick up some of our merch at AmericanHysteria.com. All profits continue to go to the Samir Project, a Palestinian-led mutual aid group who are on the ground in Gaza delivering food and supplies to displaced families. That's AmericanHysteria.com to get some merch and support the amazing work of the Samir Project. American Hysteria's producer and editor is Miranda Zickler. Our associate producer is Riley Swedelius-Smith. This episode has additional editing by Kaylee Jasperson, and I'm your host, Chelsey Weber-Smith. Thanks, as always, for listening, and I hope you have a great